Alright, this is a slide demo, so please excuse the poor quality of it as it is a minimum working prototype. But alright, with the speech today, I would like to share to you the most important lessons I've learned at my time at Constructor University in search of the purpose of life. Before we start diving in too deeply, you know that in a bit there will be a performance by Constructor Orchestra, and I'm very proud to talk about it. So I co-founded Constructor Orchestra in May 2023 and having led it up until my graduation in January this year. It was a rather memory to cherish, pretty successful student club. So as a leader, I've put in a lot of effort to making sure it's successful and it's going to be sustainable beyond my time. Upon studying many organizations, leaders, and different ways to run it, these are the rules that the orchestra lived by, at least back in my time. So first and foremost, we run by love and not by fear. So when you are driven by the external pressure of fear, you can go so far as that pressure applies. We don't want that. We want people to be driven internally by their love of music, of doing what we do together. And for all the decisions made, I never think about the immediate consequence. I think about what long-term habit these actions build, right? So as the next point says, it's all about the long term. And then again, something will go wrong. That's the nature of things. So, but when it does, we be sure to blame the system and not the game. We blame the system, not the player. And when it's on us, we be solution oriented. We don't start defending ourselves, don't start pointing fingers. We think about what can we do better, and we find the way together. And as the orchestra grows, so it becomes way more established, and things start fall in place. We have protocols, we have the way we do things. Always remain day one and challenge every existing terms and rules. It can only get better if we challenge it. If we don't, the best we can is to fit the old definition. And this is perhaps the most important idea. Without it, there will be no orchestra. So don't think about what you can do. Think about what you want. And if it's beyond what you can do, but you want it badly enough, you become able to succeed, to make it. And that's why orchestra happened in the first place. So I've learned a lot from running an orchestra, and certainly these lessons will be valuable when it comes the time I build my next orchestra. But what exactly will be my next orchestra? That has to do with why I study BCCB. So the question I always asked myself growing up was, what's the purpose of life? I couldn't find it. So I twist the question a little bit to, what do I want my life to mean? What do I want to leave behind? And it's quite challenging to answer. I spent years and years and years until 2017. So when I was in the back of the classroom, very bored in a hot summer day, I flipped my way of thinking around. So I don't think about what I want to do. I think about what is the biggest problem I dare to challenge. What would be the greatest thing I could solve? And there are many of them. But among that, I came to the conclusion that so environmental problem is quite potent, and global warming is the main part of it. So even if we succeed at stopping the greenhouse gas emission, fossil fuel, whatever on Earth, if we succeed, congratulations, but we do have to live with the consequence of what we release up in the atmosphere for at least tens of thousands of years. And there's not really anyone tackling that problem, that part of the problem. So I thought about, okay, if that were to be the problem I solve, how would I solve it? What other ways to bring millions or trillions of tons of greenhouse gases back to Earth, therefore allowing more heat to escape the atmosphere and then cooling down the planet? There are many scientific technical reasons that at the time I don't really know, just following my intuition. So I want the solution to be scalable. So I don't want to heavy manufacture every new component to be out there. I think the only way things can self-multiply is to be living. And the living thing that can take up greenhouse gases seem to be, for example, cyanobacteria. Then what I need to do is, one, have good enough understanding of life, of the science underlying beneath it, because at the time I have minimum knowledge about science whatsoever. And second, I need to be able to host these bacteria such that it survive the condition in the atmosphere and therefore can do the job. And third, I need to build it at the scale significant enough to change the world. So to do that, I think back in time. So I first thought of the theoretical endpoint. What's the ideal goal I want to achieve? Then I think, what must I do to achieve that? Who must I be? Right. So that's the next logical step. And part of it, to have the project at such a scale, you need to be able to manage people and build a successful organization. Hence, I made the orchestra, and hence this is my next orchestra. Now, next, you need the knowledge, right? So it's about keeping living system alive in harsh condition. First, I need to understand living system at its core. So therefore, the program biochemistry and cell biology here at Constructor is the perfect place to start, because I need the basics of the understanding of life. I come in here knowing almost barely anything. Besides that, so the scientists, they are very smart, but not so much when it comes to money most of the time. And the pitfall of many biotech startups, especially if we look at the hype around the beginning of 2020 or the end of 2010s, they don't really understand the cycle of money, or how to invest their money, or what business model makes sense. So I need to equip myself with this knowledge, and I have to be relentless enough to keep fighting, keep being in the game until I succeed. And this is, I think, the most underrated aspect of successful people that us young people tend to overlook. So it's not that we have an idea and we jump to do it ASAP, right? So there are ideas that are way ahead of its time. There are ideas that are way too late for its time, and there are just the brilliant people that are not in the place that permits the growth of this idea. So, for example, I like to bring the example of Bill Gates. Right, he is at the fancy school in New York at the year that the first personal computer just arrived, and happens to be close to the professor that has connection to that company, and be good enough to be recommended for the job. Had he been 1 year earlier, then he would have graduated, and then the younger generation would have taken his place. Or had he been 1 year later, then somebody else the year before would have done this and perhaps would have succeeded instead of him. To not spend too much time, I would be happy to tell you this in person later, but for now we go on. And the other thing is the ability to navigate the unknown, because what I want to do is unheard of. I talk to people all the time to this date until now. It's still unheard of as an idea. So with these components of success thought of, then I work my way back. From my present standpoint, how do I achieve it? Of course, I started from my home in Bangkok in Thailand. One big step I made is to come here and take on the course of biochemistry and cell biology. Now I want to dive into some of them to share with you. For example, to understand the economy and finance. To fulfill this point, I have been having a career as an investor since November 2020, where ever since I've invested in companies in stock market in Thailand or in the US. So the point of it is never about money. It's about understanding the DNA of a successful company, of successful founders, understanding the economy and investment well enough to succeed. So that's sort of a certificate that I've studied this well, and if I make money, that's just a bonus. The next point, the tenacity. I want to be capable of enduring enormous amount of pain, because when you think about it, all the great achiever, that all the people that change the world, they have extraordinary capacity to tolerate pain, right? That's one of the things Jensen Huang mentioned as his most important asset at the commencement at, I think, Caltech last year, not sure. The same goes for Elon Musk and many other people that I study. And so what I do is that I want to push myself to the limit. So I would take on the coursework and many other things, running orchestra, having investment career, all at the same time, to the point where I am about to go insane. My body's about to collapse. So I want to push myself to exhaustion under immense amount of stress and pressure, and oftentimes I won't be studying in ideal condition where like in a quiet, peaceful, well-organized room. I'll be in a messy, noisy place full of distraction. I'll force myself to lock in. I force myself to be able to focus. Because to do great thing, you're not going to be coming into the office happily dancing and singing every day. You're going to have bad and rough days. I'm not interested in how well I perform on my good days. I'm more interested in being able to deliver on my worst day. And the bonus of it is that if I'm at the limit, but I still want to do this, then the mission itself matters enough. Right? So the next point is the right place, the right time, and right area. I have sort of somewhat mentioned it. So most of these can be viewed as luck, but I believe that we have certain control over it. So bring yourself into the place, the time, and among the people that would most likely give you the chance to succeed. How do you know, right? That's such a hard question. You don't really know, but you got to navigate it nonetheless, right? So to the way I develop the ability to navigate the unknown is, first, I focus on the ability to ask the right question, because what's the point of all the effort if you ask the wrong question, you go in the wrong direction, right? So it's a bit hard to put together to word, but there's a habit that my younger self have been doing since I was 2. I like to ask things, ask questions, but don't expect immediate answer at first. Form my own prediction of the answer, and once I get the answer, I would look back at my prediction and see how far off am I, and how can I improve that predicting capability, improve my understanding the model of nature in my head, and then I keep doing that over and over and over. At some point, I can observe that my intuition gets significantly better. In neuroscientific ways, I think this could be explained as the System 2 and System 1 from Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. So the way the way that the two systems work is that System 1 is the quick-firing, instant, iterative answer, and then the System 2 is the slow and deliberate, energy-consuming contemplation. It's unrealistic, right, to make all the decisions with the system too. You're not going to have the energy. You'll be exhausted very very quickly. But it's also not very safe to just quick fire all the answer you have without thinking. So what this habit have been doing to me, I think, is that it supervises the system one with the system two. So I would try to predict things sort of intuitively before before I get the answer. Then once I get the answer, I would compare it back to my answer, and see what part of it can be improved. So that's where I use the system to sort of morph the system one from the initial prediction to the reality, and you keep doing it for 20 plus years. I don't want to reveal my age now, but still in the 20s. So you do it for that long, then certainly that sharpens your intuition, and therefore the ability to ask the right question. And the next thing is the ability to make and trust a novel solution, because of course when you're dealing with the unknown, there's not going to be any known answer to rely on. What I do about this, I think, is quite a fun idea. So I like to forget things and then start over from a different point in time, maybe different mood, different amount of background knowledge. What this does is that it allows the starting point of my thought to be flexible. So I would keep thinking about the same concept over and over from a different starting point, and approach it from a slightly different angle every single time. So what this does is that first, it allows me to see a more complete picture of things, because you may think of similar things, you may think in similar ways to arrive at the same answer, but you would have considered something different along the way, and once you do that tens of times, hundreds of times, you get a much more complete idea of whatever thing you're thinking about. And so for example, biochemistry, we have general biochemistry, we have advanced biochemistry 1 and 2. I forget most of them every single time. They were not completely planned, but still. So then I try to approach them with a different angle, different program of my learning. So the first time general biochemistry, I learned it quite in a typical way. So I go to a lecture, I listen to the recording and make notes and try to understand it. Okay, cool. Second time, the Advanced Biochemistry 1, it's a metabolic pathway course. So typically there's a lot of details and a lot of cramming involved, and I hate cramming, for the love of God, I cannot. So what I did was, instead of cramming, I put the pathways next to each other and just strip off of all the details. Just look at what they do. What does each step do? And once you sort of lay multiples of the pathway next to each other, you start to observe that, hey, actually there's like a few key things these pathways try to achieve, just in a different manner. So the differences between them in many cases are just different means to achieve the same purpose. So you can actually think of many pathways as like a parallel of each other, instead of memorizing all of them separately. So this helps my learning a lot. And the next thing is Advanced Biochemistry 2, which is molecular genetics. It's a lot of content once again. And my time management in that semester was very poor. So I have very little time to study. What I did was, instead of studying chronologically as the class content goes, I study by grouping the subtopics in the way that I think makes sense. So I make sort of a phylogenetic trees of the content, and then study them group by group or subgroup by subgroup. This way, the content that I already see as makes sense and belong together can be easily studied. So I study just this cluster. It'll be easy to understand, like the details of whatever is in the cluster, and then keep doing that for all the cluster, and then it's much faster to learn. So to be honest, I forget so much about biochemistry already, but the next time I have to learn it, I have at least 3 ways of learning it. Who knows how much more, right? And the third thing is the ability to self-correct. Because what's the point of all that if you're wrong, right? So without the ability to self-correct, you have to be right on the first try, which is super unrealistic. Anyone who does science know that that's bullshit. So to achieve this, I have to keep myself in check. I must be honest and be humble enough to admit all the mistake, all the wrong I've done, right? And have to truly understood what I do to be able to correct myself. And this latest concept introduces the idea of self-improving system. So that's a very interesting thing, because if we now go back to the components of success that I identify, now I think about what's the flaw of this model. To be very honest, I'm very bad at longevity. So just the point above, 2 points above, I put my body in so much pressure and pain and torturing. It has its purpose, but I must know when to stop, right? So once I am sure I have developed the quality I need, I must be able to stop and then live a healthier life to preserve myself, to be alive for long enough to succeed and beyond that, because there's more life than that. And perhaps more interestingly, when we think about self-improving system, now go back to the diagram I made earlier. There's not only about the life and the career goal and how I would achieve it. I also have life beyond that, or besides that. So on the side, I must be living. I would be studying. I would study from role models. I have someone mentor me. I would look at case study of people who have done similar thing before. So in terms of self-improving system, all of this seems to go towards updating the goal that, the scientific solution, as I learn along the way, that the solution I have back in 2017 is so laughable right now. But I learn along the way and keep updating the scientific solution of that, and therefore the component of success always remain dynamic. But actually, when you think about that, is the goal that important? I'm not so sure. Perhaps all of this there's like a purpose that governs this career goal of mine, right? And all the things I do besides that, all the things I do in life, living, working, learning, experiencing, is to sort of go towards this definition of life to update it as a self-improving system, right? And then this definition of life therefore governs the career goal. That would be closer to what I think is happening in my life. And of course, we must talk about the purpose of life. What is it? Do we know it? And could we ever really know it? So on one hand, I would like to sort of clarify the way I see this. There's a functional purpose of life. So think of a knife, it's to be cutting things, right? But that's the function that it's designed to do, not that the knife chooses to do. So that's sort of my definition of functional purpose. And of course, to us, it is to survive and to expand the population of our species. But on the other side, there's the intentional purpose. What do we want in this life, right? You cannot ask it to a knife. You cannot ask a knife, what is it that you want to be in life? It's designed to be a knife, and that's it for them. But for us, we can ask this question, right? And the answer is rather subjective. I don't know if you disagree and you think somebody should tell all of us what our life means. That's a bit strange. So I believe it's subjective, and we can define it for each of our own. I'm not going to want to define what your life means, nor do I want you to define what my life means. But we don't know. We don't really know what our life means. I bet you don't know. Even if you think you do. I don't know, even if I spend my whole life trying. So perhaps it makes sense. So the fact that we don't know what the purpose of our life means, then it makes sense that part of it is the search of the purpose itself. So think of it this way. So on the axis you have time. So T0 is the time at the start whenever, and then Tn. I don't want to use T final. It's not quite what I mean. Anyway, from the start, you sort of have a definition of life. You think life means something, and you live to your best effort to achieve that definition. But then what? Now that you're there, what do? Do you just keep getting stuck in this definition of yours, right? So the rest of your life, the definition can never make more sense. That's quite depressing, isn't it? So why don't you update the definition as you grow, right? So the journey towards sort of achieving the first definition of yours, you suddenly have learned something, and that learning could go towards sort of updating that definition of life, and then you live your best to achieving that definition. And of course you do it again and again and again in life as you grow. So that's how I see life, as defining our purpose, and in the meantime updating the purpose itself as we grow. I want to bring you back to the orchestra for a little bit. So these are the things we do to make orchestra arguably one of the most successful student club of this university history. These are the things I study heavily in my first year. I still study and apply it in my second year. And in the third year, when I look back, I realized that they seem to converge at these 2 points. So first, there must be a sense of achievement, some mission or some inspiration, something for us to strive towards, right? Otherwise, it's quite boring. We're just going to gather together and then do some boring thing, then we're done. No, that's not in the DNA of successful organization, at least those that I study. On the other hand, you want a supportive and encouraging environment, at least for the people we have, right? So I've made a mistake in the past that I was way too serious, way too strict on the thing, and then it scared some people. They couldn't perform, and it did no good to us. So in the end, I turned myself around and then choose to build a much more welcoming and uplifting atmosphere. Because these two things just try to bring the most out of our people to achieve the common goal we have together, which is to, be a good orchestra, building beautiful music together, and just have a meaningful friendship. But okay, so all of that done to bring the most out of our people to achieve common goal or mission. But that really depends on the people we have, on the level of professionalism, competitiveness that our orchestra is, right? So this will not work if you build a professional orchestra. And how will it work? The way I think about it is to flip your thoughts around. So instead of thinking you do these rules to make a sense of achievement and supportive environment, no, you start asking how to bring the most out of the people to achieve a common goal, right? And then you think, okay, you need to create a sense of achievement for them while keeping the environment supportive and encouraging. So then all the things I mentioned earlier would make sense. But to the people we have, makes sense to the level of competitiveness, of professionalism that we are. But when you start your thought that way, for whatever other orchestra you have, you're gonna find what fits instead of just blindly following what I'm telling you today, right? So that brings me to the point of the timelessness of the principles. Because, for example, let's think about life. You say you start at the university degree. You start at middle school, elementary school, middle school, high school, university, find a job, retire, done. Oh, the exact set of that, like if I tell you what I do, it's not really applicable to you, isn't it? Like, do you want to bring the bacteria back? Do you want to use bacteria to bring back greenhouse gases like me? No, I don't think so, right? So these advice would not really fit your context and perhaps the time. It makes sense for the technology of today or in a few years. But if I tell this to someone 100 years back, it's complete nonsense, right? So how to make the advice or the principle not time and context dependent and therefore widely applicable? Once again, I bring it back to, we have the starting point, then what I like to do is I think about the theoretical endpoint. What is it that I want it to be? And then think back, what are the ways to achieve it and which way is the best? And then you work your way back to the present. So you would see it in how I design my life goal, also in how I design the orchestra, right? So there are some parallel to it. And in the meantime, you strip off all the details and keep just the most fundamental concept as the transferables, because once you do that, once you distill all of this to you strip it off, you minimize the content to just the very core of it, then it is oftentimes applicable beyond its original field. And then once you start working back, so you strip everything off, you go to the theoretical endpoint. Once you work back which way is the best and work your way back to the present, then you reincorporate the details. Now you will have the detail that makes sense to the solution. So one practical example is sports that I play. So I play badminton. On the left, if you just learn badminton as you need to do this posture, then this and this and this to hit hard or to win the game. Yeah, that's stupid. Because first of all, the biomechanical properties of each individual would differ. So the most suitable mechanics of the shot will differ, and the mental preference or capability would differ. Therefore, the game strategy would also differ. The way I think about, whenever I play badminton, I never think about how to play a certain shot best because I suck. But that's besides the point. I think about how do I do all this in attempts to best understand the body's biomechanical property. So whatever shots I play, I don't the focus is on trying to correlate the motion to the result, such that I would have a mental model of what movement in my body result in what shot. And then that's what I keep in my head as the very fundamental idea of biomechanics of the racket sports. But once you have that fundamental understanding, what movement of yours and the racket contacting the shuttle or the ball give what results, you can reintroduce. Say you wanna change the outcome. You wanna instead play tennis. You can follow the same biomechanical property and reintroduce the detail of what you need to do to get what result, but with a different racket, with a different balls and different set of rules apply. That's just just one example, and I'll be very, very happy to play tennis once I'm done with this. So if somebody would be willing to play with me, please, 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 I would love to. All right. Sorry. Let's go back to okay. Sorry. So with this idea, the principle that you learn, you distill it to the very fundamental core of it, enough to be timeless and widely applicable. I think that should be the goal of the learning or education as a whole. So now back to my life goal that I've showed earlier. Yeah, it's very pointless for you to look at this because first, you don't want to do what I want to do. Second, you probably have different definition of life than I do, right? And third, we're gonna live in a different way anyway. So it's useless. If you take the picture now, it's useless. But let's do what we just discussed, right? So we we disregard the details and we distill unto the very core of the principles. And now we get this. So on the one hand, we have the career goal that we can analyze the component of success and then work our way back to the present, what we need to do to achieve that. But also we also have to live, and upon living, learning and experiencing, we are in search of a better definition of life and its purpose. And that goes towards updating that purpose of life, which governs the career goal at an upper level. So that's something that I think applies to any of you. So for example, how do I not have a starting career goal in mind? My career goal would be to search for a career that I would want to do while living a happy life. So that would be the goal of mine, and then the component of success. So that's the definition of success, and the component of success that follows will be according to the definition, and what I need to do back to my present self will also be according to the components, right? So the principle stays, but the detail is incorporated in the nature of the recipient or the observer. And then I live, and as I experience life, and I sort of find a better definition and update what exactly do I want with my career as I learn, as I grow. At first I don't know, that doesn't matter, try something, and then you learn, and then you update it. But what exactly is my purpose? Maybe that's the question for now. So of course I start with a very noble and ambitious mission to like in hopes of preserving life on Earth, not just human but all life altogether, although it has application beyond just on Earth, but that's a topic for another day. And on the other side, what I seem to have been trying to do for the most part is to understand the nature of thing, like understand thing as it operates as a function of nature, right? So the diagram, the life diagram that I showed you earlier, is a function of the nature of my life at this point in time. So the same thing for you would operate as a function of your life at your time. So that's sort of the way I try to understand the nature. And what this results in me, that I observe, is that it seems to bring some degree of peace when you understand that things happen just by nature. You understand that, somebody being annoying, being rude or something, there are reasons that they are what they are, and it's just in their nature. Doesn't mean you have to love them. I'm still getting annoyed. I still, but at least that it gives me empathy or compassion towards many other things I otherwise would, be so rude at. And I quite like that. I think this is what I want more of in my life. So, so maybe that would be my definition, my best attempt at defining the purpose of my life right now. I want to be at peace in life while making this world a better place. And the way to do it is to attempt stopping global warming by bringing atmospheric greenhouse gases back to Earth. And to succeed, I have to obtain the right knowledge to learn to manage and build organization and manage people, and to live long enough, be relentless for long enough to succeed, all the while not going bankrupt. And to do all that, I have to bring myself at the right place at the right time, and be courageous enough to navigate myself in the vast ocean of the unknown I have yet to face. Those are the things my today self will seek to do best. And in my life, I'll live, I'll learn, and I'll keep learning. So that, one, I will be searching for a better definition of life, because I believe the best is yet to come. And on the other hand, I wish to understand the nature of things better, because then it allows me to be at peace in life while having better chance at making this world a better place. And that is my most important lessons learned at my time at Constructor University. Thank you all so much for listening, and really sorry for suboptimal speech quality. It's about 3 a.m. right now, but I just can't help myself. I have to do it. Alright, thank you very much, and maybe there will be better recordings coming in. Who knows? But if not, I'll be sending you this one for your consideration. Bye bye.